Welcome and thank you for joining us for Coffee with Hillary and Les, brought to you by State of Mind Hypnosis and Training Center, located in the heart of the Kawartha Lakes. This is our almost daily community podcast about the mind and how you might change it in the most simple and helpful ways. Every day we sit, staring at the lake and sipping our coffee, having a chat about hypnosis and how to make those meaningful adjustments to our state of mind. Because nothing is more important than your state of mind. Okay, we're on the line.
Welcome back to Cuba.
Yep. We just had a wonderful, I was going to say snowstorm, not a snowstorm, thunderstorm.
Yeah, it poured rain. And now the blue sky is reappearing. The air is a little bit cooler. Palm trees seem happier.
Yeah, it's amazing how it just livens up the colors and the...
You know, it makes me think about emotions. How emotions arise from conditions. And that if you allow them, they dump all their power and then they just pass on. And emotions are gone. Emotions should be allowed to flow. Like the rain in Cuba. Emotions come, the rain comes, it pounds down. I mean, it was pounding down.
Yeah.
And then now, like, there it is, there's the sun. And that's in a matter of, 15 minutes?
Yeah. We always have one day where this happens.
Yeah.
It's like one day a week.
Again, think of that as your emotions.
Yeah.
You're going to have emotional times.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're not living. Look at that. The shadows are out. The sun is bright.
Yeah.
Amazing when the emotion goes. When you let the emotion go, how clear and clean you feel. How relaxed you can be. Emotions are meant to flow.
Yeah.
So we were sitting in the lobby today doing some work, because not so much that we're workaholics as we love what we do.
I know I had a friend who I asked her to check the website because it doesn't work here in Cuba. So I asked her if she could check it from Canada, and she said it was working, so that's good. And she was angry. Not angry. She was like, "What are you doing? Working on your holiday?"
But it's the stuff that fascinates us. It's the stuff that has driven us to the point where we want to start a business and we want to work in this field. Mm-hmm. And we want to think about this stuff. And I mean, I guess that's my sick, twisted obsession is I have spent most of the last 30 years thinking about choice and thinking about the mind and thinking about why we don't feel free and why we can't just choose what we want. And so for me now, doing a little bit of research to help some clients, it's just so enlightening, and to learn some new stuff and more stuff. And this morning I was just spending time, thinking about writing something on dopamine rushes and what your alternatives are, and the two biggest alternatives to people who find themselves addicted to dopamine in all kinds of life circumstances are meditation and exercise.
Oh, really?
Those are the two most successful responses, apart from, taking pills that will try to impact your brain chemistry. And even then, the pills that you get, it really speaks more to depression, because depression will drive dopamine seeking behaviors that become addictive because they lift you up, at least momentarily. It was interesting to read that dopamine is really much more about motivation. It's not a happiness drug. It doesn't actually create happiness. It creates a desire to do things and to continue to do things, and that's why gambling and even watching sports can be real dopamine addictions. Just, if you find yourself getting up on Sunday morning and you can't turn off the TV, you've got to watch every football game that you can. That's just dopamine seeking, right? So lots of neat stuff. And so, yeah, I feel driven to learn about that in my spare time because it's my dopamine rush.
Yeah, and I think it doesn't have to be long either, the dopamine rush. I mean, it can be, I'm no scientist, but it can be like a nanosecond. Think about how many times we check our feeds, and have you ever had that instance where you close down Facebook and you literally 2 seconds later click on it again?
There you go.
That's so weird to me when that happens, and I'm just like, oh, okay, something's got to give.
Yeah, and just us, in our own phone behaviors. I mean, cell phones and social media are a problematic thing in that regard. And so that's the key, right? The key to understand is the dopamine rush is not one that makes you happy, and it's not sustaining, it's not lasting. It doesn't kick in and then hold you somewhere. It is an immediate kind of reward that drives you to repeat the behavior. And that's why it becomes addictive, because it's addictive. What's the definition of addiction? There's lots of different definitions. I like the one that says any behavior you're driven to do that has a counter positive effect, a negative effect, interferes with your normal life, and you do it anyway, is an addiction.
Right. So even something that's bad for you, that you continue to do without thinking?
Yeah, I mean, we tend to think of addictions as coming from substances, but the addiction is actually in your brain chemistry, in that sense of lifting you up. Alan Carr talks about addictions in cigarette smoking, and he says the addiction kicks in the instant you put out your last cigarette, because the instant you put out your last cigarette, you're thinking, when do I get my next one? Because we live in a world that promotes smoking but doesn't facilitate it. And so you got to go out of your way to find a place and a time where you can have your nicotine hit. And they talk about nicotine being the rush, but the mental behavior that is, I put out the cigarette and now I spend all of my time between now and my next cigarette thinking about my next cigarette, wondering when I'm going to get it. Right? And so it's a driving thing. It motivates you to behave in a specific, defined way. Anyway, that's just, I find this stuff really interesting, how our brain chemistry gets converted into behaviors. And those behaviors, because of their nature, become problematic. And then they literally interfere with our own happiness. They interfere with our own self-esteem. They definitely interfere with our relationships. So yeah, just learning and learning and learning. All the ways that things can get in the way of you making a choice. Because most people wouldn't choose to spend their day staring at their phone.
No.
But they don't know what else to choose.
Yeah.
So yeah, the top three, if you're thinking about, geez, my behavior, I'm addicted to Les and Hillary's podcast. Meditate, exercise, and they say high protein foods is helpful. That sugars are not helpful for that brain chemistry. They predispose it. Anyway, neat stuff. We'll talk more about it another time. Wasn't what we planned on talking about.
It wasn't what we planned on, no. But that's okay.
But I still want to talk about what we planned on talking about. Do you want to say why? Do you want to explain the background?
I kind of forget, but this morning when we were working, I was working on developing some memes, and you asked me, well, what's the meme about? And I got all self-judgmental and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I I got to practice what I preach, I suppose, at some point. But it's easy. It's easy to get judgmental about what you're doing, especially if there's a creative sense to it.
I think especially if there's a creative sense to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think, first of all, it's important to realize that we take great joy in creativity.
Yeah.
That most of us have it, squeezed out of us by routine and by habits and jobs that want us to do things the same way all the time. It's hard to find time to be creative, and that doesn't mean art. That can be anything. It can be writing, it can be singing, it can be musical, it can be, it still can be, creative and art and crafty and things like that. But what happens is exactly that. I said to you, what should we talk about on the podcast? And I knew you were making memes. I says, well, any meme can be a great podcast. What's the meme you're working on? And the meme was?
Just sort of floating and flying in the mind, the creative mind, the imaginary mind. Getting back to the mind of a child when you were a child. I've got a couple memes going on right now about getting that back, sort of being in that state again, because we often go through life, years passing by, and we're like giving, and doing everything for everyone else, and we get lost in that, and then we forget who we are. I have tons of clients, almost every client, I swear, is going through some element of having lost themselves to the world, and so it's a process of getting that self back. And that process involves creativity.
That's beautifully said. That's exactly the idea, right? We are inherently creative beings. It's what we want to do. We're curious, we're creative, we want to get out there, we want to do things. And then we've spent years and years of being told that's not good enough, or you're no artist, or you're no musician, or you're no actor, or you're no writer. And people offer us criticisms. They think they're helping us. Our parents think they're helping us, but all they're doing is realizing that, or causing us to think that what we create has to be in somebody else's mind good.
Yes.
And it doesn't.
Yeah.
What we have to create is our own expression. Anything we want to do a lot, if we put in the time, we'll get good at. Anybody can get good at anything if they want to put in the time. And the thing that stops us from putting in the time is that automatic self-judgment, because we receive that judgment from people who loved us and tried to help us by telling us, no, I think you should keep your day job.
Yeah, right, eh? Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, that's what when we were talking, that's what I saw, and we don't need others to do it. We become really good at doing it to ourselves.
Yeah.
Really good at evaluating our work before we've even finished it.
Yeah.
Judging it before we've even really completed the thought and the act.
Yeah.
And when I saw that, I thought that'd be great for us to talk about. For people to just identify with a mental process of judgment that takes place, especially when we're being creative.
Yeah. And it's funny because, I hold a workshop on this. like going through a meditation of releasing self-judgment and but I think it's natural. It's natural for everybody, to look at themselves sometimes, or look at what they're doing and judge it based on what they see around them, or what parents told them, or whoever told them when they were kids. Almost everyone that comes to the workshop, the art workshop, says to me, well, I'm not a good artist. And I have to tell them, like, It's not about being a good artist. And what is good, really? What is good? As long as you're creating, that's the main thing. And so most of the time, or I should say all of the time, people wind up going through the meditation and then they just slap paint on the canvas, and it often looks like what they saw or heard in the meditation, and it's beautiful. Lots of color, and it's just getting yourself out of that space of, just being so deconstructive with your own, your own creative endeavors.
Yeah, judgment takes away the joy. Judgment takes away the fun part. And so to feel like you're in a safe space, they say the first thing that stops creativity is judgment. And this doesn't just apply to, being artistic. It applies to being at work and coming up with new ideas. Innovative in any way, coming up with creative solutions to problems. The problem that we face is that before we've even finished coming up with ideas, we've already begun judging the ideas we have. And that puts the brakes on them, because sometimes these ideas should be allowed to sit and be considered and then reconsidered. And that's when refinement comes. That might take something you might have dismissed as a bad idea starts to sound like a good idea, or something that you think is not a bad idea but doesn't seem to solve the problem can be elaborated on and created and enhanced so that it does become the most wonderful solution to the problem. And judgment is just that trained response that we have, because we really are. We've been trained to judge everything, all the time.
Yeah.
And that's the killer for creativity. And, just to throw this in, I loved your meme. I thought it was wonderful. I thought it's fantastic to say to people, your mind is a playground. You can do just about anything you want with it.
Yeah. I guess I'm judging memes as not creative. Right?
How so?
Because I said, well, AI made it. AI kind of made the artwork for it. I plugged in some words.
It was your idea.
Yeah.
And then to save time, you say to AI, make me a picture of this, right?
Yeah.
So I still think that your art I like better than AI's art.
Yeah.
But I understand we're in a business, and AI is a new world, and it's very helpful in business.
Yeah.
And it gets things done quickly.
It does, yeah. I enjoy it.
The seed of the idea was yours, though.
Yeah.
And that's beautiful.
Yeah.
So I guess, if we wanted to consider a reframe, consider creativity not the results of the creative effort. The results don't matter. You're not trying to achieve an end when you're being creative. You're allowing your personal curiosity, your personal exploration, your personal ideation to just come to life. And it's not in the quality of the ideas, but in the openness and freedom within the process. That's where you really experience the joy. You know what? We've got construction going on. But if you dive into creative process and you avoid judgment, the creative process continues and continues and continues. And sometimes you look at your results and you're really happy with them, and sometimes you look at your results and you can say, boy, did I learn a lot from doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's the creative process that matters, not the end result.
Yeah. I was thinking about, classrooms when we're little kids. There's boxes of toys everywhere. There's colors, there's paints, there's everything. And at at what grade do they take all that out of the classroom, and now it's all, numbers and sit here and don't do that and don't move and don't, no more sleeping and no more naps. But what if the classrooms, wouldn't it be interesting, if as you got older in the grades, there was always a part of the classroom that had paints in it and had, a writing nook or, just a part of the classroom where you could go when it was creative time. I guess they have art class, but again, that's judged, right? You're judged, you're graded, you're not allowed to just play anymore.
Yeah, I think one can play with the desire to get better, but the play is the important part. Mm-hmm. I think about music that way. I used to be part of a crowd. We were all musicians, and when we meet somebody new, we just automatically turn to them and say, "What do you play?" And their answer would be the stereo. I play the stereo.
The stereo, yeah.
And I think about what changed in our society when we had recorded music. On the one hand, we had access to art at some of its highest forms that we might not have had access to, but we also sort of handed over our ability to make music to somebody else that we thought was better than us.
Yeah.
And we became less able to just create music for ourselves. Mm-hmm. And I believe that's one of those incredible lost things. Wow.
I don't know what's
crazy with construction.
That's over in the spa. I don't know what's happening over there in the spa.
Our attention has now been turned.
And now the water aerobics is starting. Oh my gosh.
Oh well.
Well, I think that's a long enough podcast.
Yeah. Lots to think about.
Yeah. Lots to chew on with creativity.
Yeah, dive into your creativity and don't let anybody stop you. Don't let yourself stop you, that's for sure.
Yeah. Okay, on that note. All right, let's go to the pool.
We hope you enjoyed today's podcast and that maybe it helped, even a little. If you have any questions, we would love you to send them along in an email to info@psalmhypnosis.com. Thank you for being part of the State of Mind community. For more information about hypnosis and the various online or in-person services we provide, please visit our website, www.psalmhypnosis.com. The link is in the notes below. While you're there, why don't you book a free 1-hour journey meeting with Hillary or Les to learn more about what hypnosis is and how you might use it to make your life what you want it to be. Bye for now. Talk to you tomorrow.